Today on Sports Central, we go over our next team prediction of this offseason. And this year were the defending ACC champions, the Clemson Tigers. And this team was 10-2 overall last season. Not a terrible season at all for Clemson. And even though it didn't end quite as many Clemson fans would have hoped, it still was a good season for this team. Of course, winning the conference is always a big achievement. But how will this team be in 2021 is what we're going over here today. We're going to go ahead and get started right here today with your season trends, of course, from 2020. And if you look at this team, they were 10-2 once again last year, 6-0 in their first 6 games. And their last 2 losses did come in the last 6 games. Of course, they lost to Notre Dame there in the regular season, which that was a tough loss there. And, of course, they didn't have Trevor Lawrence in that matchup. So I'd say that's a big reason why Clemson didn't get the win in the end. Like, I'm pretty confident that if Trevor Lawrence was in that matchup, there's a very good chance we would have seen Clemson get the win there against Notre Dame in the regular season. But otherwise, they did beat Notre Dame in the ACC championship game, so that is really what matters here. And they also lost to Ohio State in the semifinal game, which that was a tough loss. I mean, Ohio State all around was just extremely motivated, and that was definitely the Buckeyes game there. But otherwise, for Clemson, still an outstanding season for sure. I mean, they had several really good wins down the stretch. I mean, they beat Miami 42-17, which, I mean, that's actually a very impressive win there. Miami last season with Derek King was definitely one of the better teams in the ACC, so that was a very impressive win there out of the Tigers. Also beat Georgia Tech 73-7 was the final score there. Beat Pittsburgh 52-17. Beat Virginia Tech 45-10 on the road. And once again, they beat Notre Dame in the ACC champ game 34-10 was the final score there. So for Clemson, once again, 10-2, and even though this team didn't make it quite to the national championship, this team definitely still had an outstanding season, and that's definitely something to look back on. But looking at your roster preview now and your returning production going into next season, of course, you lose your star quarterback Trevor Lawrence. That's going to be a tough loss, especially in the early parts of the 2021 season, I will say. Of course, I mean, he was the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. So, I mean, whenever you lose a player like that, it's going to be tough for whichever position that player played, which for Trevor Lawrence is quarterback. So that's something to watch out for here. But Trevor Lawrence, looking at him last year, he put up just over 3,100 yards, 24 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, also a 70% completion rate. So, yeah, he put up some great stats last season once again, and he definitely, I think, was worthy of going first in the NFL draft. DJ Uiagalelei is going to be the next quarterback to take over for Clemson, and he's got, definitely some big shoes to fill. I mean, coming in after Trevor Lawrence, it's going to be pretty tough for him. But, I mean, when we did see DJ Uiagalelei play last season, of course, he did take over for Trevor Lawrence when he was out with COVID. So we have seen Uiagalelei play. Of course, he put up 900 yards and 5 touchdowns when he had an opportunity to last season. So he was very promising when he did get the opportunity to play last season for Clemson. And even though he's definitely got some big shoes to fill, I definitely think he is capable of leading a really good team. So nothing to worry about there by any means. Travis Etienne, he was your top running back. He will not be there for next season. He put up over 1,500 yards last year, so that's going to be definitely a tough loss there for this team. But otherwise, at the running back position, I mean, you got Lynn J. Dixon, which is going to be it's going to be interesting to see how he does. And you've got several other running backs in that core as well. Amari Rodgers, who's your top receiver, he will not be back. He is also going to be taking off after this season, and he is headed to the NFL. Cornell Powell is also not going to be returning for next season. So both of your top wide receivers are not coming back. So this team is losing quite a bit in the skill players positions. I mean, you're losing Trevor Lawrence as well as your top running back and your 2 wide receivers. So this team is definitely going to be pretty inexperienced on the offensive side, which is definitely something to watch out for. But Clemson, I still think, is definitely a team that has got plenty of talent and plenty of potential. Like, I mean, this team, even though they're losing a lot of their top players, there's still a ton of depth on this Clemson team. That's definitely going to be something moving forward that I think Clemson is going to be just fine with. But as for Braden Galloway, he's coming back. He was your tight end, and he's going to be a big impact player going into next season, I can guarantee you. But otherwise, once again, tons of depth at many of the positions on this offense. I'm not too worried about it. But looking at the defensive side, defense looks great. I mean, the offense is losing a few, but the defense actually looks really good. You're returning most of your defense there, so that's going to be huge for this Clemson team moving into next season, especially considering how close this team was to a national championship. But once again, it's just a matter of whether or not this offense can adjust to the new circumstances, because obviously when you're losing as many key players as you are on your offense, that's definitely going to be something to watch out for there. But the big thing is here, and the main point for this Clemson team is if Uiagalelei plays well, so will Clemson. Like if he does well at the quarterback position for this team next year, I think Clemson in general is going to be a good team. But however, if we do see some issues at the quarterback position, which is unlikely, that could cause some problems for Clemson. But chance of a national title in 2021, I mean, chances of winning a national title, I'd say, are pretty low just because of the inexperience that you do have at some of these positions. But I do think making it, or even making it to the college football playoff, is still pretty likely for this team, especially if you can win your ACC games during the season. But you do have somewhat of a tough schedule here. Of course, you start off the season against Georgia, which is going to be just an insane game. Like, that's going to be a ton of fun to watch. You got JT Daniels on the Georgia side. Personally, for me, I'm really looking forward to that matchup there in a neutral location, so that makes it even better. And so, I mean, just imagine if we had Trevor Lawrence was still with Clemson, he was going head-to-head with JT Daniels from Georgia. That'd probably be the matchup of the year in the first week. But it's still going to be a great matchup there on September 4th, and it's going to be a fun one to see who pulls it out in the end. I can easily see either team winning that one. That's going to be a close and a very hard matchup to predict for sure. But then you got South Carolina State on the 11th. You got Georgia Tech after that, and then NC State on the road on the 25th. As for October, you got Boston College, Syracuse, Pittsburgh, and Florida State. 4 games that should be very winnable ones for Clemson. Really, otherwise, I mean, once you get past that Georgia game, if you start off the season 1-0, I mean, you've got a good chance to finish out the season 12-0, just because, I mean, you got your toughest game of the season in the first week, which is pretty rare, but that's going to be the circumstance for this team for next season. Then you got Louisville, of course, in your November. You got UConn, Wake Forest, and South Carolina to follow. As for your September, I think Georgia, I hate to say it for you Clemson fans, but Georgia, that's going to be a loss. And I hate to say that for a lot of you guys, just because, I mean, I know that's going to be a very hyped up game. But I just feel like Georgia, JT Daniels, that team is looking on fire going into next season. I really do think Georgia is going to be the other team outside of Alabama that can win the conference. And I could easily see the Bulldogs in the college football playoff next season. Like, that team has got a tremendous amount of potential. The returning production is excellent. I really like JT Daniels as a quarterback. I mean, he was undefeated as the starter for Georgia last season. And, I mean, the amount of momentum that he's bringing to that team right now, Georgia's going to be a really good team next season, probably a top 5 team at the least. So that's going to be a tough game there. I got Georgia winning that one right now, though. That could change over the course of the offseason. Who knows if an injury occurs. But for now, I've got Georgia winning that game. South Carolina State's going to be an easy win. I mean, not much to think about there. Georgia Tech's going to be an easy win. NC State could be a closer one there. That's going to be on the road. Do not sleep on that matchup there on the road at NC State. NC State's going to be a decent team next season. I don't see them being a great team, but that's definitely going to be a team to watch out for there. So you're going to start off the season 3-1, and really after that, I mean, every game other than the Georgia game is definitely, I think, favorable for Clemson here. But looking at your October, Boston College, Syracuse, Pittsburgh, Florida State, all easy wins. I think this team is going to find some good rhythm throughout the season, and I think that's going to really lead into their October. Like, once again, another big factor that's going into that Georgia matchup is just because, I mean, this team is going to be pretty inexperienced for that first week. I think we all can agree there. I mean, you got a somewhat brand new quarterback with Uiagalelei. He's jumping into a very difficult matchup in his first week. And this offense in particular is also going to be pretty inexperienced for the first couple of weeks of the season. But I think once you can get some good rhythm, and once these players can get some experience with each other, that's going to be huge for Clemson. This team has got a ton of talent, so I'm not really worried about that. But looking at the final 4 games there, also easy wins. So I think your last 8 are all going to be easier wins for this team. And honestly, if there's a game in those last 8 that could possibly trip you up, there's a chance it's actually Florida State. I think Florida State could be a team to watch out for next season. They're definitely a dark horse in the ACC. I think, of course, they've got that one, Mackenzie Milton. He's coming in, and that's going to be an interesting player to watch out for. He's been injured, but he's recovered now, it looks like, and so that's going to be possibly again to watch out for there. But with it being at home for Clemson, I do think it'll be an easier win for now. Record prediction for this team is 11-1. So Georgia, of course, is going to be the only loss and really the only tough game on your schedule. I mean, otherwise, every single game is very, very winnable for Clemson here. But if you can get past Georgia, if you start off the season 1-0, I like your chances to go 12-0 next season. But let me know your thoughts and comments below on Clemson. Let me know your record predictions and all that down in the comments. I do appreciate you guys all watching. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I'll see you guys all later.